Welcome to NACD BoardVision, where leading boardroom advisors, governance professionals, and seasoned directors discuss critical issues related to your responsibilities in the boardroom.
Welcome to NACD's BoardVision. I'm Peter Gleason, Managing Director of the National Association of Corporate Directors, and I'm joined today by Catherine Bromelo, a partner in PwC's Center for Board Governance. Today we'll be talking about the board's role in the governance of information technology. Welcome, Catherine.
Thanks, Peter. I'm really happy to be here.
Catherine, the board's responsibility for IT oversight always generates a number of questions for board members. First, bearing in mind that the I in IT stands for information, are directors spending enough time on this critical information element of IT risk oversight? Second, with the pace of change and the complexity of IT systems, keeping up with the technology part of this equation can be a challenge, especially if directors don't have a strong background in technology. So it's not surprising that technology issues tend to make directors uncomfortable. Members also question whether IT risk oversight is a committee-specific responsibility or full board responsibility. Can you share some insights on that with us?
Peter, we know this is an area that makes directors uncomfortable. So we recommend approaching the topic of IT by looking at it a little more strategically. We suggest that directors consider a few questions that will help them decide if they need to increase their level of involvement in IT oversight.
Can you share them with us, Catherine?
Well, first, it's just a given that companies today depend on information and technology. So we suggest that directors consider questions such as, does the company have a particularly high volume of transactions, say like a financial institution? Does it collect and store particularly sensitive data about third parties? And that could be any kind of things like healthcare companies. Does it allow individuals who are outside the company to enter its systems? Or does it maintain proprietary know-how, processes, or other intellectual property? And if the answer to any of those questions is yes, then we believe that more director involvement in IT is warranted.
Okay, Catherine. I'm guessing that probably includes a fair number of companies. The IT spend at companies can be very large, even at smaller companies. How are you seeing directors being active in IT risk oversight?
Well, the most obvious other reason to become more active is if there's a major IT project underway, one that's either transformational to the business or that helps enable a new company strategy. And it's vital, we believe, for directors to understand the scope of such projects and the costs associated with them, as they really can present some significant risks to the company.
Without a doubt. These are areas where boards that might not usually be focused on technology could find themselves needing technology expertise in order to offer oversight on things like business continuity. This specific technology expertise may not rest with the board, and it may be hard to acquire.
That's probably right. And that's also one of the reasons why directors often are just so uncomfortable with this topic. In fact, in 2010, PwC analyzed the backgrounds of all directors in the Fortune 500 companies, and fewer than 1% of these directors had any kind of Chief Information Officer background. Furthermore, in PwC's annual Corporate Director Survey from 2010, 50% of directors agreed that it's either somewhat or very difficult to add new directors to their boards who bring technology expertise.
Well, I'm not surprised by that. In fact, NACD just issued a white paper. In a survey we did for the paper, almost half of the companies surveyed indicated that they were dissatisfied with their board's ability to provide IT risk oversight. As I indicated earlier, when you consider how much is riding on IT, its cost, and the company's ability to use it to operate efficiently, the statistic is very alarming.
It is a challenge for boards today, but it is not an insurmountable challenge.
I'd like to leave the audience with a few takeaways on how boards can get comfortable with overseeing information and technology risks of the company. Catherine, what do you suggest?
Well, Peter, here are 3 ideas for directors. First, if IT is strategically significant to your company and you don't have someone on your board that has reasonable technology skills, really focus on adding those skills. It might not be easy, but it's definitely worth the effort. Second is to make sure you devote time in the boardroom to discussing the company's technology program. Get the answers you need and seek corroboration that things are okay, even if you need to use another source, such as an independent board advisor. And third, make sure you understand the full cost of technology. And that means the consulting fees to install the system as well as the licensing equipment, training, maintenance, and other kinds of expenses. And make sure that management is able to explain to you whether there are significant variations in the budgeted cost of those and the actual costs that are coming in. And as you get regular updates from management on project status, you'll know then, or have a better sense then, of whether a project is in trouble or not.
Thanks again for joining us today, Catherine. As always, we appreciate your insights on this important topic. That wraps up another edition of NACD's Board Vision. On behalf of NACD and PwC, I'm Peter Gleason, and thanks for joining us.